I want you to breathe with me for a moment, slow, deep, intentional. Let your breath settle. Let your heart unclench. For so many of us, the hardest prison to escape is the one we built inside our own minds, with memories that linger like shadows we refuse to let go. I want to tell you something that might feel like a gentle breeze and like a thunderclap in your chest. You are holding on to people who were never meant to stay, and it is costing you your peace. You are clutching memories, conversations, hurts, expectations, and dreams of what could have been, and in doing so, you are forfeiting the moment that is. You hear me. You hear it deep in the silent chambers of your heart, where you don't speak aloud the things you whisper to yourself in the dark. You know you need to let go, and yet you hold on, not because you want to, but because you are terrified of what it would feel like to release it. You are afraid of what emptiness feels like. You are afraid that if you let go, you will have nothing left. You are afraid the soul, called void, will swallow you whole. But hear me carefully, with the entire depth of your spirit. What you think is emptiness is the space where Allah wants to place something greater for you. What feels like loss is sometimes the clearing of a field, so that blessings can grow in ways you cannot yet imagine. We must speak about release, not as a mere concept, but as a transformation of the soul. You cannot hold on to yesterday while stepping into tomorrow with courage. You cannot carry what was with you and expect room for what will be. You think of their name and your chest tightens. You see their face in passing moments and your calm disappears. You scroll your memories like a playlist on repeat, over and over, waiting for a different ending. You revisit messages, decipher every word, weigh every nuance, replay every interaction in your head, thinking if you just understand it differently, you will be free from it. But freedom rarely comes from understanding. Freedom comes from release. You can understand heartbreak in every possible angle and still remain chained to it. We need to ask a very honest question. Why do you keep returning to something that does not return to you? Why do you cling to what abandoned you? Why do you replay scenes when the person is long gone? Why do you freeze your life in an old chapter when you deserve an entirely new book? You do it because your heart is afraid to trust again. You do it because you think if you let go of them, you are letting go of love itself. And you are afraid that once you let go of them, love might never come again. Understand this, beloved. Holding on to someone who rejected you is not love. It is fear disguised as loyalty. It is fear whispering, "What if I never find someone like that again?" Fear wrapping itself in nostalgia and calling it affection. Fear constructing fantasies and calling them destiny. When Allah wants to teach you something, He doesn't let you cling to the wrong person forever. Sometimes He draws them near just long enough to teach you that you do not need that person. Not for validation, not for acceptance, not for comfort, not for identity, not even for love. Allah's wisdom in detaching you from what hurts you is far greater than your fear of being alone. Allah knows that sometimes the thing we are most afraid to lose is the very thing standing between us and our purpose. Let that sink in. You think you are losing them, but perhaps Allah is removing them so that you do not lose yourself. You have placed people in a position only Allah was meant to occupy, the position of comfort, peace, and fulfillment. And when they could not remain there, you blamed them and wondered why Allah didn't keep them for you. You fought a losing battle because you asked the wrong being to satisfy what only Allah could satisfy. You gave them the key to your joy. You surrendered your happiness at the door of a human being. And when they walked away, you stood in the rubble wondering why your heart collapses when it was never meant to be built on sand. Allah says in the Quran, "And whoever relies upon Allah, then He is sufficient for him." Not some human, not your first love, not the person who left you when you needed them most. Allah. Only Allah. You have been trying to extract validation from people who were never meant to validate you. You have been trying to squeeze reassurance out of hands that were full of their own insecurities. You have been waiting for affection from those whose hearts were not ready to love, and you are wondering why your heart feels empty. It is because you were pouring your soul into cups that had cracks. Beloved, no matter how much you give, the one who is not ready to receive it will pour it back on the floor. Not because your giving was insufficient, but because their heart could not contain it. Allah does not place love in your heart only to snatch it back without reason. He places love there so that when it leaves, you do not remain in ruins. He wants you to know, truly know, that your worth does not come from the affection of the one who rejected you. Your worth comes from the one who created your heart. The struggle of letting go is not because your feelings were fake. The struggle is because your heart was genuine. You were sincere. You loved deeply. You hoped, you trusted, you believed. That tells me your heart is alive. If your heart was dead, letting go would be easy. The pain is not a sign of weakness. It is the sign of a heart that still feels, that still hopes, that still seeks connection. But you must understand something critical. Being real doesn't mean being stuck. Being sincere doesn't mean being stagnant. You can let go of a person and still honor what they taught you about yourself, about love, about need, about patience, but you cannot carry them forward in your life forever. Letting go does not mean erasing the memory. It means releasing its grip. It means you acknowledge your story, you honor your emotions, and then you take a step forward regardless. Why? Because life does not wait for you to finish grieving your past to give you your future. The moment you stop replaying the past is the moment you create space for your future to enter. You cannot welcome what is coming if you are still seated in yesterday's waiting room. So how do you let go? How do you release what feels so embedded in your spirit? Let me speak to you gently. Let go by choosing Allah over your memories. Every time your mind begins to wander back to what was, direct your heart back to what is. Every time nostalgia begins to seduce you into regret, remind yourself of the lessons, not the longing. Memories are not traps, but clinging to them is. You do not lose what was meaningful simply because it ended. You only lose it when you stop carrying its lessons forward. Let go of the need to understand everything and accept that some endings are not meant to be explained. They are meant to be experienced. Allah did not waste that chapter of your life. Nothing you lived through was in vain. Every lost handshake, every unanswered message, every silent departure, Allah saw it. Every time someone walked away from you, Allah was preparing your heart for someone who will never treat your soul as disposable. Someone who will make your sincerity something precious, not something expected. But that person, the one who will treat you well, first Allah wants you to treat yourself well. You must learn to speak kindly to your own heart. You must learn to embrace your own thoughts with softness. You must learn to be your own sanctuary before seeking refuge in someone else. Because if you cannot be home to your own heart, no one else can be your home either. Letting go is not forgetting. Letting go is acknowledging. This was part of my story. Not, this is my identity forever. You are not your past relationships. You are not your heartbreak. You are not the echo of someone's departure. You are the sum of your strength, your resilience, your healing, your endurance, and your capacity to love again, even after being hurt. Let go of comparing your life to theirs. Let go of wondering if they grew while you are stuck. Let go of the what ifs, the could have beens, the maybe one days. What if, instead of asking what if, you asked what now? What now, beloved? What will you do with the space that has opened up in your heart? What will you place in the emptiness left behind? Will you fill it with fear or with faith? Let this truth settle in your bones. Allah never gives you a void without wanting to fill it with something better. The emptiness is not evidence that you are forgotten. It is evidence that you are being prepared. You are being prepared to trust Allah more than you ever trusted a human. You are being trained to find comfort in Allah's presence rather than in someone's attention. You are being molded into someone who does not ask, will they stay? But Allah will stay. And this is the most radical form of freedom. Many will tell you to move on, but moving on is not the task. The task is to move forward without dragging the past behind you like a chain. You don't have to erase the past. You just have to unshackle yourself from it. Every time you find yourself revisiting the old wounds, whisper this: Allah knows, Allah sees, and Allah will not burden me with what I cannot bear. Then breathe, and let it soften your heart. Remember, letting go does not mean the past did not matter. It means you honor the lessons it taught you, and you trust Allah with the healing you need. You graduate from being someone who clings to what hurt you to someone who cherishes what shaped you. You are not meant to be someone who sits and ponders why someone left. You are meant to be someone who asks what Allah has prepared for you next. Your heart is not too fragile to survive this. Your heart is not too broken. You are stronger than the chapters that tried to define you. You are braver than the pain that whispered lies into your ears. And your worth is not measured by any person's inability to love you the way you deserved. So let go. Let go of the attachment that blinds you. Let go of the memories that anchor you. Let go of the hope that was never returned. Let go of trying to make sense of a story that Allah has already concluded. Let go of the pain that makes you forget your value, not because you are heartless, but because your heart matters. Let go and focus on your relationship with Allah. Let go and invest in your inner healing. Let go and allow your heart to rest in the certainty that Allah's plan for you is far greater than what you lost. And in that letting go, you will discover something astonishing. The heart that once broke is now beginning to heal. The soul that once whispered, "Stay," is now empowered to whisper, "Grow." The spirit that once waited on someone else's return is now anchored in Allah's everlasting presence. Let go, not because you stopped caring, but because you choose peace over pain, growth over stagnation, and Allah over everything else. And that, beloved, is the essence of true reliance, not denial of hurt, but surrender of it into the hands of the one who created your heart and knows how to mend it. Imagine the weight you carry every time you replay memories that no longer serve you, every time your mind wanders to moments that are gone, every time your heart clings to someone who has already walked away. That weight is invisible to everyone else, but it is crushing your spirit slowly, quietly, relentlessly. You tell yourself that remembering is a form of loyalty, that holding on to the past is a testament to love, that revisiting what was keeps the connection alive. But the truth is, the connection you think you are maintaining is a chain you wrapped around your own heart. The past is not a tether, it is a prison when you refuse to release it. You can understand heartbreak endlessly, you can analyze every interaction, you can question every detail, but understanding does not set you free. Freedom comes from letting go, from acknowledging the reality of what was and choosing not to be held captive by it any longer. You are afraid that releasing the past means losing it forever, that letting go erases it from memory or diminishes its significance. Let me tell you gently that letting go does not mean erasing, forgetting, or denying what you once cherished. Letting go is an act of courage, an act of self-respect, an act of faith. It is telling yourself that you honor what happened, but you will no longer allow it to define your present or control your future. Holding on to people who are not meant to stay, holding on to memories that hurt more than they heal, keeping alive the what-ifs and the could-have beans, these are the things that steal your peace quietly while convincing you they are love. You are not betraying your feelings by releasing them. You are not being cold or heartless by stepping away from what no longer nurtures your soul. You are choosing life. You are choosing growth. You are choosing yourself. It is terrifying because our hearts were never made to endure loss without questioning, without yearning, without pain. And yet, this pain is not meant to imprison you forever. It is meant to teach you, to show you the strength of your heart, to reveal the resilience you carry even when you feel broken. Letting go is not an event. It is a process, a series of small decisions repeated every day, every moment, every thought. It is choosing not to return to memories that wound you. It is choosing to redirect your mind when nostalgia tugs at your soul. It is choosing to accept endings that you cannot rewrite. The act of release is a declaration of trust. Trust that life, trust that Allah, trust that your heart is capable of flourishing even without the presence of what once seemed indispensable. It is a quiet rebellion against the false notion that holding on proves love, that clinging to the past affirms loyalty, that your worth is measured by what you can keep rather than by who you are. When you finally take that step, you will discover a space in your heart you did not know existed, a space where peace begins, a space where life waits for you to breathe freely again, where healing quietly begins, where the next chapter can start unfolding without the chains of yesterday constraining every movement, every thought, every breath. There is a quiet but profound lesson in understanding where your heart places its trust. So often we hand over the keys to our happiness, our peace, our sense of worth to people who were never meant to carry that responsibility. We invest our energy in seeking validation from those whose approval is temporary, whose affection is conditional, whose presence in our lives is uncertain. And when they leave, or when they fail to meet the expectations we have built around them, we are left wondering why our hearts feel empty, why our spirit feels restless, why our sense of security shatters. It is because the human heart was never designed to be a foundation. It was designed to be nurtured, to love, to feel, to connect, but not to be the ultimate source of fulfillment. When we rely on others to satisfy the deep hunger of our hearts, we set ourselves up for disappointment because no one but Allah can occupy the place of sufficiency in our lives. Trusting a human to be your constant, your comfort, your validation is like building a home on sand. It may feel secure for a moment. It may seem solid when things are calm. But when trials come, when absence comes, when change comes, the foundation crumbles. You feel betrayed, abandoned, diminished, and yet the fault is not in the human who could not fulfill what was never theirs to fulfill. The fault lies in the reliance we placed in something temporary instead of eternal. Allah tells us in the Quran, and whoever relies upon Allah, then He is sufficient for him. The sufficiency of Allah is not merely a concept to memorize, it is a reality to live by. It is a principle that reshapes the way we experience attachment, disappointment, and love. When you begin to rely on Allah for what only He can provide, peace in the heart, clarity in the mind, contentment in the soul, the absence of others no longer threatens your equilibrium. You begin to see that no person's departure diminishes your worth, no human neglect diminishes your value, no unreciprocated love diminishes your capacity to love. This does not mean you stop loving, caring, or connecting. It means you realign the source of your emotional security. It means you understand that relationships are blessings, not guarantees. It means you cultivate a heart that can experience deeply without being shattered when things do not go as hoped. Trusting Allah over human attachment requires a conscious choice every day. When your mind drifts back to someone who hurt you, when your heart clings to someone who left, remind yourself gently that Allah's plan is sufficient. When longing whispers in your chest, Redirect your yearning toward the one who never abandons. When fear tempts you to cling, remind yourself that ultimate comfort resides not in human hands, but in the hands of the Creator. Reliance on Allah transforms your perception of love and loss. It frees you from the chains of dependency on the inconsistent hearts of others. It allows you to navigate life's relationships with clarity, wisdom, and serenity because your foundation is not shaken by human frailty. The beauty of this trust is that it does not limit love, it expands it. When your heart rests in Allah, it can love freely without fear, it can give without expectation, it can cherish without dependency, and it can endure the impermanence of this world while remaining anchored in the permanence of divine care. There is a truth that many of us overlook in our pursuit of healing and happiness. Before seeking solace or validation from others, we must first turn inward and learn to care for our own hearts. The journey of self-focus is not selfish, nor is it a sign of weakness. It is a fundamental step toward reclaiming your peace, your strength, and your sense of purpose. Too often, we spend our energy trying to mend the wounds that others caused, hoping that someone else's attention, approval, or affection will fill the emptiness inside. We scroll through memories, replay conversations, and linger in what once was, believing that if we are noticed or remembered by them, our hearts will finally rest. But external attention, human validation, and fleeting affection can never satisfy the deep longing of a soul designed to connect with the divine first. True healing begins when you choose to invest in yourself. It begins when you acknowledge that your heart has been carrying burdens it was never meant to carry alone, and you make the conscious decision to nurture it. You must speak to yourself kindly, the way you wish someone else had spoken to you when you were vulnerable. You must treat your thoughts with gentleness and your memories with patience. You must allow your soul the grace to feel pain without letting it define your entire being. Turning inward means being honest about your emotions without judgment, allowing yourself to process grief, disappointment, and longing without shame, and understanding that these experiences are part of the human journey. It means recognizing patterns of attachment that no longer serve you and gently redirecting your energy toward growth. It means embracing solitude not as loneliness, but as a sacred space for reflection, introspection, and strengthening your connection with Allah. Self-focus is an act of empowerment because it reestablishes the boundaries that protect your heart from being repeatedly hurt. It is in this practice that you learn to discern between what nourishes your soul and what drains it, between what brings growth and what perpetuates stagnation. By turning your attention inward, you cultivate emotional resilience. You discover that the moments of discomfort, the echoes of past pain, and the absence of what you once longed for do not define your worth. Instead, they become stepping stones toward self-awareness and personal development. You learn to honor your feelings without allowing them to control your decisions. You learn to set standards not based on fear of loss, but on respect for your well-being. You learn to embrace your individuality and acknowledge that your identity is not dependent on the presence of another person, but on the integrity, faith, and care you cultivate within yourself. Focusing on yourself also transforms your capacity to connect with others. When your heart is nourished and whole, you can engage in relationships without desperation, without attachment that binds, without fear that your worth is contingent on someone else's affection. Self-focus allows love to be a choice, not a necessity, and connection to be a joy, not a requirement. The more you invest in your own healing, the more clarity you gain about your values, your desires, and the direction you want your life to take. You begin to see that nurturing yourself is not a detour from life's journey. It is the essential path that prepares you to engage with the world, others, and even your own heart in a way that is healthy, intentional, and rooted in the understanding that your first and most sacred responsibility is to care for the soul entrusted to you. Pain has a way of shaping us quietly, almost imperceptibly, until one day we look back and realize that what once seemed unbearable has become a teacher, a guide, a mirror reflecting our strength and resilience. Every heartbreak, every disappointment, every person who left, every opportunity that slipped through your fingers, all of it was never wasted. The struggle, the achy, the longing, they are not signs that you are weak. They are evidence that your heart is alive, that your capacity to feel deeply is real, and that your soul is being prepared for something greater than what you had before. When someone leaves, when a chapter closes, it is easy to see only the loss, to feel only the emptiness, to focus only on what was taken away. But the wisdom of life, the mercy of Allah, is that these losses carry within them lessons and strength you would never have discovered otherwise. Heartbreak teaches you patience in ways comfort never could. It teaches you discernment to recognize what nurtures your spirit and what diminishes it. It teaches humility, reminding you that you are not in control of everyone's hearts, that not every affection is guaranteed, and that reliance must ultimately rest with Allah alone. Each wound you carry, each scar that remains, becomes a testament to survival, a proof that your spirit can endure, that your soul can mend, that your heart can still beat with love, even after it has been broken. Pain, when met with awareness and trust, transforms from something to be feared into something sacred, a forge where character is tempered. You begin to understand that trials are not punishments, but opportunities for refinement, that what you once perceived as unfair endings are often divine redirections, that the absence of someone from your life does not diminish your capacity to thrive. It is in the midst of suffering that you cultivate a depth of faith that comfort cannot teach, that you learn to lean on Allah when the world offers no support, that you discover the hidden reservoirs of strength within yourself. Transformation does not come from avoiding pain, it comes from embracing it, from seeing it as a tool for growth rather than a barrier to joy. Every time you let go of someone who could not stay, every time you release attachment to what hurt you, you are choosing growth over stagnation, resilience over despair, trust over fear. Your heart becomes a garden where lessons are planted, where patience grows, where wisdom blooms, where gratitude emerges not in spite of hardship, but because of it. You begin to recognize patterns, to understand your responses, to navigate relationships with clarity, compassion, and discernment. The pain that once threatened to define you instead becomes the foundation upon which a stronger, wiser, more grounded version of yourself stands. And when you look forward, when you step into the life that awaits, you carry not only the memories of what was lost, but also the profound knowledge that you survived, that you learned, that you evolved. Your experiences of heartbreak and disappointment are not chains, they are catalysts. They are the instruments through which Allah shapes your capacity to endure, to love, to trust, and to flourish in ways you could not have imagined before facing loss. Pain, when surrendered to divine wisdom, becomes the source of your greatest strength, the crucible in which your soul is refined, and the pathway through which your heart is prepared to embrace life fully, deeply, and without fear. There is a freedom that comes not from control, not from holding on, and not from clinging to what is familiar, but from surrendering to the reality that some things are not yours to keep, some people are not yours to hold, and some outcomes are not yours to dictate. True liberation begins the moment you release your grip on what no longer serves your heart, the moment you stop measuring your worth by someone else's presence, the moment you understand that your value is inherent, not conditional. Letting go is not weakness. It is an act of courage, a declaration that your heart will no longer be bound by chains it never agreed to wear. It is realizing that control is an illusion, and that when you place trust in Allah instead of human hands, you create a space where peace can enter, where clarity can emerge, where your soul can breathe freely. Freedom through surrender is not about denying your feelings or pretending that loss does not hurt. It is about acknowledging the depth of your emotions while refusing to allow them to dictate the course of your life. It is about saying to yourself, I feel, I grieve, I mourn, and yet I will not let this define me. I will not let this anchor me in the past. When you let go of attachment to what has already passed, you are not erasing your story. You are honoring it while creating the room for new chapters to be written, chapters filled with growth, wisdom, and blessings that align with your true path. Surrender does not mean passivity. It means engagement with life from a place of trust and clarity rather than desperation and fear. It means stepping forward knowing that what is meant for you will never miss you, and what leaves your life is never the end of your journey, but often the beginning of a greater one. By releasing control and entrusting your heart, your plans, and your outcomes to Allah, you discover that peace is not something to be chased externally, but something that resides within when your soul is anchored in divine wisdom. This act of surrender transforms pain into a teacher, disappointment into insight, and endings into openings. You begin to see that each loss, each disappointment, each moment of uncertainty is not a punishment but a preparation, a gentle redirection toward something better, something more aligned with your ultimate purpose. In letting go, you reclaim your agency, not by clinging to the uncontrollable, but by consciously choosing where to place your trust, by deciding that your peace is more valuable than lingering in what no longer serves you, by understanding that your heart thrives when it rests in what is certain, eternal, and unshakable. The moment you release attachment to outcomes, to people who could not stay, to circumstances beyond your control, you step into a state of liberation where your actions are guided by intention rather than fear, by hope rather than longing, by faith rather than uncertainty. Freedom through surrender is not a destination, but a continuous practice, a daily choice to release what binds you, and to trust in the one who knows what is best for your heart, your journey, and your life. It is the profound realization that the soul flourishes not when it clings to the temporary, but when it anchors itself in the eternal, trusting that every ending, every departure, every closure carries within it the seeds of renewal, growth, and unseen blessings, and that by letting go, you are not losing, but gaining the truest form of peace and the deepest form of freedom.